Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value hi-fi, home theater, and headphone equipment. And today, we're talking about the OSD Nero 5 bookshelf speaker. It's $64 right now. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the OSD Nero 5. Today's sponsor is Sith Audio audiophile gift bags. That's right, they're running a big special right now after the lots of dust. After the holidays, each gift bag is guaranteed to make anything that you put into it audiophile. Or if you put it in your room somewhere, it acts as room treatment. That's right, Sith Audio audiophile gift baskets / room treatments. Big sale right now, $3,300 a piece. You can get a pack of 2 for $6,200. Okay? Okay. OSD Nero 5. Look at this cute little thing. All right. So one of the viewers turned me on to these, and I took a look at them, and they obviously look like a complete ripoff of a Q Acoustics 3020i, 3010i. All right. Pretty small. Rear ported, 5-way binding posts, 1-inch soft dome tweeter. Hello, tweeter. 5 1/4 inch woofer. I don't know what it is. Maybe some type of treated paper or something like that. So I'm going to cut right to the chase. This is going to get a resounding recommendation with a caveat. There's a caveat. So when I first got these, I hooked them up. Not going to tell you what my initial impressions are, but for testing purposes and evaluation, I had these hooked up to, yeah, this is going to be a little bit overkill. The Schit Agir being fed by the Freya, and then I had the Lokius in between those, and that was being fed by the Denafreps Aries too. So this is like all of my top end stuff, and then going into these, the Nero 5s. Sounded real good, very good. Of course it did, right though, because it had very good electronics. Now, with that said, I'm not going to go through the bass, mid-range, and treble. We'll talk a little bit about that, but this speaker has potential. Now, when I was running it through the Agir with the Freya and the Denafreps Aries 2, it was still a bit active on top, i.e. it can get a bit fatiguing, especially around that upper mid-range area. So what I did is I ended up turning down the upper mids a little bit on the Lokius. I can't remember exactly. I think it is 2K. 2K, and then I think 6K, and then whatever the top end is. So I brought all of the treble down, and especially the upper mid-range down, and they sounded quite good. These are only spec'd down to 90 hertz, but I felt like I was getting very usable bass, probably into upper 60s. I didn't feel like this was, oh, there's no bass here. I was actually kind of shocked at just how cohesive, and I didn't look at the specs until after I did all this listening. I would have never guessed that this speaker was only rated down to 90 hertz, which is very refreshing because normally speaker companies grossly overstate their low-end roll-off. So 90 hertz, it goes lower than 90 hertz. Top end, very clear, mid-range, clear, but again, leans a bit harsh. Cymbal decay is a bit brief, but for a speaker at $64, it retails for $80, but there's a 20% off coupon right now, on the Amazon. So for $64, this is doing a great job. What we have here is too much activity in the upper mid-range and a lot of spiciness up on top. They're rated at 4 ohms and 87 dB. 4 ohms means the resistance. That can be a harder to drive load, so you may want to check your receiver or your amplifier to make sure it can handle a 4 ohm load. Sensitivity is 87 dB, which means how much power does it take to get this thing loud. 87 dB is not super low, it's not super high, it's kind of right in the middle. Probably south side of medium. I didn't have any issue driving these off of the Agir. Frankly, they sounded great on the Agir. But, okay, it's great that it sounds good on high-end equipment because that is the highest-end equipment I have. That's a $900 DAC going into a $600 preamp going into a $700 amp. So there's a lot of money in the electronics. So I took the IEMA D03, which is a $160 Class D DAC amp. I ran my trusty Oppo CD player into both of those setups. And the good news is, these still sounded very good. Now what I had to do on the IEMA DO3 is I brought down the treble -4, and then it sounded pretty good. Still a bit active in the upper mid-range. Surprisingly, bass tone and texture was good. I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised at this speaker. So I got a bit curious with these, and I bought them so I can do whatever I want with them. So I opened them up, and I found their crossover, and lo and behold, their crossover actually had some fairly decent components for a $64 speaker. 2 air core inductors, 2 electrolytic caps, and then another cap. I'm not really sure because I didn't pull it out and actually reverse engineer the crossover, but it looks like a second order high pass, a second order low pass, and then another cap in there for whatever reason. I'll figure it out. The one thing that was missing though on the crossover was any resistors. Now it's starting to make sense because I've built a few speakers. I've built a lot of DIY speakers for myself and for customers, and I've actually tried my hand at putting together a speaker and designing the crossover. Really bad. It wasn't good. My speakers aren't good. But through doing that, I learned a little bit. And what I learned is very rarely is the sensitivity. Sensitivity is how loud a speaker or an individual driver plays at a specific power rating. Rarely is a tweeter the same sensitivity as a woofer. So what speaker designers generally do is they put a resistor either before or after the high pass crossover to bring the overall tweeter level down to be in line with the woofer. There's no resistor on this crossover, which means although this tweeter is being crossed over, it's also wide open. Its sensitivity is not being brought down at all. And if I'm a betting man, I am guessing that the sensitivity of this tweeter and the sensitivity of this woofer are not the same. One probably needs a resistor. Good news is the crossover actually pulls out with the binding posts. And you don't have to unsolder, well, you're gonna have to do a little bit of soldering if you do this. You don't have to take apart the crossover board or anything. There's air core inductors on here. There's decent capacitors on here. The only thing you have to do is figure out which lead, and there's 4 leads coming out of the crossover, 2 for the woofer, positive and negative, 2 for the tweeter, positive and negative. You find that positive lead, you snippy, not too close to the crossover, snippy, give yourself about 2 or 3 inches, and then you throw a resistor in line with the positive lead on the tweeter. And now we can bring down that overall treble response. I don't know what the actual frequency response looks like, but what I do know and what my ears tell me is it's a bit hot on top. So 2, 3, 4 ohm resistor on the positive lead of the tweeter is going to bring that treble down in line. Even if you don't want to crack this open and start snipping wires and putting resistors in line with the tweeter, it still sounds good. It sounds good to me with a bit of tone control or a lot of tone control. With the Lokius, I was able to dial these in no problem. With the IEMA, I was able to bring down the treble -4, 2 clicks down, and it was listenable. But the DNA, the frame of this baby can do a lot more. And I'm not here to tell you that you should redo the crossovers on a speaker or anything, but at $64 with an already decent crossover in here, for whatever reason, no resistors, it's a quick and easy fix. For a couple of bucks, $5, you're gonna pay more in shipping than you are in buying the resistors. You can put a resistor in line with this tweeter, buy a 2 ohm, buy a 4 ohm, buy a 1 ohm, try them out. Don't solder them in, maybe just twist them up or whatever, and then stick it back in there and give it a listen and see what you like. Whatever you like, whatever sounds good to you, and bring it down another notch. So if you like the 3 ohm, put in a 4 ohm. Food for thought. You can put in whatever resistor you want. You don't have to put in a resistor because tone controls do work on this speaker. It's got some polyfill. Now it's not like loose polyfill. There's a whole bunch. Even the port on here is flared on the inside too. I am very surprised at the quality of the crossover components and the port. Probably could use a little bit of bracing. I didn't pull out the front drivers, so I didn't see in here if it's actually square in here or if it's curved on the inside. I'd imagine it's probably square or square corners on the inside. But when I first heard this speaker, I didn't think it really had any crossover. I thought maybe there's a cap on the tweeter. As I listened to it a little bit more, I started thinking, you know what, there's something here. And then I started messing with tone controls and got it to sound real nice. And then I popped open the back end, and there's a lot to like here. If you just put this stock on something and you don't use any tone controls, it's going to be hot on top. It's going to be hot in the upper mid-range. And initially it's going to sound pretty good, but if you put any type of volume through these, most people are going to get fatigued awful quickly. And the treble response to me just didn't sound in line with the rest of the response. But again, I think this thing goes down below 90. It has great bones. Stock with some tone controls, it's fantastic. But I'm going to play around with this thing because I think with a few tweaks, this speaker could be absolutely phenomenal. At $64, even at $80, the OSD Nero 5 is now the king of the sub $100 speaker, with the exception of the Sony SSCS5. That's a bit of a different animal because that thing can go up to $150 or even $160. King of the less than $100 speaker, unless the Sony's on sale. So this dethrones the Mookie. Mookie is still a decent speaker, but if I could only have this one or the Mookie, I'm getting this one. I'm buying a couple of resistors for $1 or $2 a piece, clippy on the positive tweeter leg, and I'm putting a resistor in there and I'm bringing it down. And if I don't like it, then I'll put a different value of resistor. Really surprised, very surprised, and I'm so glad that somebody turned me on to these. They're kind of hard to find too. If you just type in OSD speaker, nothing really comes. Well, there's a bunch of other stuff. I think they make a variety of things, but you have to type in Nero 5, OSD Nero 5, and then these will come up. They're good looking too. These are really good looking, and I think this is going to be a fun project if you're into DIY. And even if you're not, throw in some tone controls, and I think this speaker is really going to surprise you. If you're just getting into vinyl, you can get a affordable Class D like the IEMA DO3, the Lox GA30, some of the Fozzy audio offerings. But I think you're going to want a little bit of juice with these because at 4 ohms and 87 dB, if you want decent bass response, I think you need a little juice. IEMA A07, IEMA A08 actually would be a very good combination with these. But also, I think one needs some tone controls unless you have a very warm amplifier. I would steer people towards the DO3 or anything else that has tone controls. Overall, I'm thrilled. Not perfect by any means. It is not perfect. It's too hot on top. But if you have the right amp, you can bring that down. But if you have a little gumption, a screwdriver, clippy, patience, get on Parts Express, order up some resistors. This thing can be amazing. That's right. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every single night we have Patreon-only Zooms. We also have a Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also sign up for Amazon Music. There's a link in the description. Sign up. You get a few months for free. I get a couple of dollars even if you cancel. You can also use the links to buy the OSD Nero 5 bookshelf speaker that looks like a Q Acoustics, but it's not a Q Acoustics. If you click on the link and you buy, it's not going to cost you any more, but I do get a commission. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Put a little tone controls on your new OSD Nero 5s and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.